welcome again to the Enthusiast Podcast. We call it High Octane Talk, but it's really just a bunch of bozos sitting around talking cars.
Speak for
So
yourself.
I'm in good company.
Oh, okay.
Jordan Hill, Kevin Cohen, some car bozos.
Absolutely.
So I had in the past month involved in classic cars. Very, very interesting story, which will lead me to a question, but I had the distinct honor to be asked to help elderly couple sell their 70 CUDA. Very cool story. Fellow owned the car since 1989, bought it needing full restoration, and it was a kind of a redemption car because him and his wife had bought a new one in the 70s and sold it through marriage. So he buys this car, owned it since 1989. This car had never seen water. He fully restored it. It had never been washed. And loaded in a trailer, out of the trailer, car shows, stanchions. Just this wonderful, beautiful couple. She had little CUDA earrings, and they had their jackets, and just wonderful. He had converted his trailer, so the front portion of the trailer was living quarters and the rear section was for the car, and that was the life of the car. In the trailer, go to shows, out of the trailer, display. They met people. So very interesting story, though, about selling cars, and point of it initially is patience, because I marketed this car all over, and you get a lot of the people that will come and say, well, you know, your $80,000 car is worth 50, and you know, you're never going to get that money. And there's always the bozos who have unsolicited opinions that are way off. At some point over the holidays, I get a phone call out of Oklahoma on the car, and this fella says, this is a dream car. I'm a Mopar guy. I've had some real health issues, and I want to buy this car for my grandson. Okay, signs the bill of sale, and don't hear from him again. Having health issues, blah, blah, blah. So give this a month or so, and another fella pops up. Like, what do we do? How do we sell this car? So anyways, the folks made the decision that please pursue the next guy. So the fella from Montana buys the car, and then he's having troubles with the trailer. And so I said, well, why don't you just buy these folks' trailer? Oh, well, that makes sense. Well, turns out his truck doesn't pull it. So he goes out and buys a brand new 1-ton dually.
That was a beautiful truck.
Like he absolutely did it.
Yeah.
Super cool story. He's never going to sell it. He got to meet the folks, just hugs and kisses all around. Absolutely just one of the joys of being involved in the classic cars like I do, because you join two stories and share the passion. But it leads me to this question. I've always been involved in investment cars.
Yeah.
Right or wrong answer, trailer queen or drivers? What the ups and downs of having a trailer queen versus a driver. I have driven my stuff, although very sparingly. Guys make fun of me because I don't drive my stuff a ton, but every year something gets out to BC or whatever. But I've never really had a trailer queen. Right or wrong?
I've never had one either. I love driving. If I did have a trailer queen, I would have to have something else that I could drive. Period. Because I love the driving experience, but I sure would love to have a car that's
that special.
Mm-hmm.
George?
Yeah, I think so too. One of the things is it's not that all guys want to have a trailer queen, right? They're scared to drive something they appreciate so much, and
well, that's
maybe be scared of hurting it a little bit,
like even like a rock chip or a
And you know, that's not the case for everyone, obviously.
Yeah.
But people, that is a major factor. I know you've kind of had that experience a little bit too.
Yeah. In many cases, I mean, even just last night, meeting a fella with his Dodge Dart, and this thing was absolutely spectacular. He says, a rock chip would just break his heart.
Oh
And so
yeah.
not driving it enough. But it gets to the other question of investment. These trailer cars that only see the daylight at car shows and whatnot. But for me, like driving owning the Jaguar, the XJ220 for so long, that car absolutely mortified me to own, because at some point I was able to own the car, and I sold my 911 Turbo to pay for the mechanical refurbishment of this thing. So you can imagine the bill on that. But I was so afraid of a rock chip,
Yeah.
not only in the paint, but in the windshield. Who knows what a windshield would cost
10,
on that car?
20 grand.
So that becomes the car that you're showing. And it's the car in rarefied air where only like a doofus like me shouldn't own that car, because I have the puckered sphincter experience anytime anybody
Yeah.
even walks around it,
Yeah.
let alone driving, because I can't afford the $40,000 windshield or whatever that was. The tires were $13,000.
That's shocking.
So
Amazing.
but that's the other conversation, is that's an investment,
Right.
but the investment of having a driver, more than one currency in life. Getting in a car and going for a drive brings a tremendous amount of happiness if you're in the right state of mind.
Well, yeah, and that's where I'm at with it. I definitely just want to have experiences. That's what life is about. You want to just have experiences, have memories and everything. And, I don't think I'd lock my car away, no matter what it is, just so it keeps its value. I think, down the long road, it's a little more important to, look back on those days where you're driving a beautiful car that might be in mint condition from whatever era. I think you just drive them. It's like getting a new pair of shoes, right? You don't like when you first get them. You
Or
don't
undies,
want to,
yeah,
or,
boxers, yeah.
or those two, and you don't want to walk around and get it all damaged or whatever. But that fades away, and you're just comfortable in it. You're happy.
Yeah.
Stuff. I think that's what really matters.
The one car that I have in my garage, I am reluctant to put on more than say 1,500 or 2,000 kilometers in a season, like come spring and then
This
fall,
is
put it away.
your
ZR1.
Your ZR1 Corvette, yeah.
But it needs to be enjoyed, and it needs to have its legs stretched in order to, just be maintained, do its oil changes,
Yeah.
change its fluids, do the little things on it, enjoy the car. But as an investment, I don't want to put say 5 or 10,000 on it. Absolutely not. But it definitely is now where it's,
Well, the interesting thing about your car, like the C4 ZR1, we have probably all agree it's one of the most undervalued specialty cars in the world, for what they were. The argument or conversation is, there's those cars specifically. There was a lot of cars that were mothballed right off the dealer floor, and they have no miles on them. So what that creates is there's an investment car, but for who? Because your 500 mile ZR1, and we say Z in Canada and in other parts of the world. A lot of people say ZR1, but in Canada we say Z. Well, my YouTube channel just blows up with all of when I do the ZR1s, everybody's like, say it right, you Canadian asshole. And it's like, well, in countries other than the United States, we say Z. So I'm taking a shot at those guys. But
kids these days are being taught Z in school. Damn it.
well, so I'll say Z from now on if I remember. But
It's got an aluminium block though.
right, that's right. But what it does is it when you mothball that car, that you have a tremendously small market of people that will afford that car, because it's only collectors who have that much disposable income that will sit on a car. Because the moment you start driving that car, the premium that was just paid for the no miles starts to dissipate immediately.
Right.
So you're in a situation where you can put miles on your special car every year, and it really doesn't affect the value because the next guy who buys it knows it's been exercised and it's been used and it's been maintained,
Yeah.
and it's not worth the same as the 500 mile or 50 mile car. But the market is much broader because people want those aspirational cars to experience, not just to look at.
It's worth it in
polish.
experience for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So that in itself is the conversation of what is even an investment car. And I've always said there's two currencies in life, of course, more than one currency in life. And experience is a major reason why people buy cars. And when you hear of collectors say, "Oh, I miss that car,"
Oh,
it's because of
all
the
the time.
smell and the sound and what they did for them.
Mm-hmm.
Jordy, you were lucky to experience a lot of cars at a young age, and now have, I think, the experience that you can see that they're an investment, both in joy, going for a drive, but also you can own them in many cases for free, and sometimes even make a few bucks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we've tried to do is growing up, drive our first couple of cars for free, try to make a profit. But yeah, like you said, I miss that car. I mean, growing up being young around all these cars and stuff, you never forget the smell of an old Porsche.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Probably one of
They're-
the most
yeah.
distinct.
yeah,
It's, man,
Yeah.
the
But
sense of smell is like, it's so powerful. And you get in like an old Ferrari or an old Porsche, and you're just like, even a Beetle,
yeah.
yeah,
distinct.
absolutely.
Yeah, they
It's
have
true.
their own charm and personalities, and that in my mind is why um you don't often hear, or you don't often see people gathering on a Friday night at an A&W to talk about their stock portfolio, because it's hard to share. But every night of the week, certainly in Calgary where we're from, every night of the week when the sun is shining, somewhere there is a group of car guys sharing with each other, and they're not talking about their RRSPs and 401ks and their stock dividends and whatever. They're talking about why they have it and the drives they go on and the trophies they just won.
Yeah, and that's something so special that we still have going on. And with the come up of electric cars going on and stuff, as of lately, you really hope you still see that sort of thing, because guys love that sort of thing. Because it involves engines, right, and burning rubber and stuff, and you
Yeah.
can't get that sort of thing or that kind of personality out of EVs as much anymore. Like, they're fast as hell, but
Yeah, I mean, the party
you're not
trick
having
of the,
EV meetups. I've not seen
There
one of
might
that.
be.
I'm
There
sure
might be. I bet
I'm
you there is.
Oh, I'm sure
and
there
I
is.
have
I
no
have
comments on
doubts.
what that crowd would be like.
Yeah, no,
As far as personalities. But you can get the Teslas that the
Electric.
doors open up and they
Dance.
No,
dance and they do their thing or whatever. It's just different. It's just very
It
different.
is. Yeah, but no, you can't beat driving through a mountain road with a flat six behind you, and that's the end
Goodness.
of it.
No, that's probably as spiritual as it gets. But
Yeah.
what's interesting? So you're just about to turn 20. You could be the last generation or a group that's a few years younger than you that has any real appreciation for cars from the 50s on, because they're just gonna disappear, and the whole direction of the automotive world is changing so much that a lot of appreciation for the older cars is, there's a whole generation that's not even going to really be exposed to them or care.
Yeah,
They're just
well,
going to be old things.
not on my watch.
That's right.
Well,
Not
and
on my watch.
the car meets themselves span, it seems now, all age groups and all, your makes and models. You'll have JDM meets, you'll
Mhm.
have old guys in their hot rods, and
Yeah.
you'll get a group of exotic car guys.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny because it's like Same. It's the groups that kind of group together the tuner guys.
Yeah.
And um, it's interesting because the tuner guys are just the modern day hot rodders.
Absolutely.
And it's some of the funny old guys that look down their nose on the noise and whatever. It was like, hang on,
way.
pal, you were doing that in the 60s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You guys were doing exactly the same
Just
thing.
doing it with 4 cylinders
Yeah.
and 6 cylinders
Flathead
now. And
Fords and whatever, and now they're doing it with VTEC.
yeah.
And there's no difference to what's going on. It's the same passion. It's just different cars, and they're just doing it in what is financially attainable.
Yep.
Exactly.
And some of those cars are going through the
Wow.
roof too, but
Yeah, that's right. Like Jordy has
sure
his
are.
300 ZX, the Z32. Got it from the original owner. That's a money in the bank car as far as where the marketplace is going to take it. But can you get for a young guy a more pure enthusiast experience than a proper Japanese sports car? They did it right of that era, and that's why it's such a massive culture.
yep.
Out of the cars I've driven, still to this day, I think that's probably the most complete car you can possibly get in. Everything just seems to fit into each other so well. When you're behind the wheel of a 300 ZX, the transmission, the steering wheel on it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Even the seat,
Even the seat,
Yeah.
right?
it just
And
it kind of tucks you in.
Oh,
the interior feels. I don't even know what the word for that would
Special.
be, but you
It's
look in
just
it,
special.
Mazda had a word for it a few years ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. It was like you were one with the car.
Oh,
Like
yeah, it's just how a cockpit should be. Oh, when you
yeah.
open the
Well, they
door,
won.
you-
I mean, of
you
course,
know.
I was working for Nissan back when they came out, and they won design awards for just the interior, all over the place. And
it was simple
Yeah.
but effective, and
but
everything was in the
right
right.
at your hands,
Yep.
right off the steering wheel, your wipers, all of it was right there. But there is the culture now. Is there's a generation that's for me growing up, it was and it was the 308 Ferrari. And
I
the-
never grew up.
and the as you aged, let's put it that way. But it was the Magnum PI Ferrari for me, and the Testarossa on Miami Vice. There was the Smokey and the Bandit car. The Cannonball Run Countach was, I think I wore that VHS tape out that first 3 minutes of the Cannonball Run intro because the Countach was the car. Those were the cars that impacted me more, but Jordy's more in the Fast and Furious crowd of the Supras and the tuners, and
There you
those kind
go.
of cars have created this cult for these different cars, the FDs, RX-7s and the Z32s and the Mark IV Supras and stuff have just absolutely taken off, and rightfully so in my mind. The first gen NSX is in my mind one of the purest cars ever produced ever, and deserves every dollar they're getting for them. And it's this crowd of niche guys that get together and support each other, and enthusiasts just being enthusiasts. It's very, very cool. And then you get the hot rodders and the old 50s guys that somebody's putting on a Bing Crosby song as you're getting a burger, and it just drives you nuts. But
Yeah.
it's all these guys hanging out together, and like attracts like.
It's almost tribal
Yeah,
in a way.
exactly.
It's tribal how
Absolutely.
these guys have their own groups and
Yeah.
taste in cars and stuff. How many different categories of car meet is there?
Yeah.
Hot rods, Euros, JDM.
Yeah. Exotic. The Model A, Model T guys that hang out. It's an interesting group of fellas too.
You just brought something up that made me wonder about, is it the age of the guy or the type of car that he drives that maybe determines the type of music that he likes? Because you go to the tuner meets and there's DJs there. They're spinning.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
And I love that kind of
Yeah.
thing, but I also love like Depeche Mode, U2, and then like CCR.
Yeah, and
So-
we're locked into the music we like. I mean, I get made fun of because of my playlists that go over and over.
How do you
Whatever.
know? We only do it behind your back.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Oh,
No, but it's funny because those old car meets have those. I just used Bing Crosby. I don't know of a guy from that era, but just in general. But what's interesting is some of those groups I don't like being around, and maybe it's because I'm uh, don't like people or whatever. I don't know, but
old and crotchety.
maybe I don't know. Um, but there's a few groups that are challenges, and to me, they're not true enthusiasts. They're just a bunch of wallets getting together to show off. And I
Mm-hmm.
experienced it, and I don't say this about all the groups, but I experienced it with a predominantly Ferrari group, where there was back then it was the 430s and then the 458s and stuff, and those were the hot cars. And guy pulls up, and I think at that point I had a 308, and you'd pull up in this meticulous 20,000-mile 308, and nobody would even talk to you. It was just the new guys hanging out, the new money. And I didn't think those guys were enthusiasts. I
Yeah.
thought they were just Ferrari fans with
Mm-hmm.
big pockets who didn't even understand how to pay homage
Mhm.
to the significant cars that got you there. And a vintage Ferrari, in my mind, is far more of a spectacle than a new one, as magnificent as those cars are. A properly loved and cared for vintage Ferrari is more impressive of any a Dino or whatever is more impressive to have, because not only does it take money, it takes a tremendous amount of taste to
Yeah.
own a car like that.
And
Oh.
depending what show you take it to, there will be times where that vintage car will get more attention.
That's right.
For sure.
That
But,
was just
you
the
know,
group I had experienced
if
of
it's-
predominantly new money.
Well, yeah, I'm sure like, the group you bring it to where the older car gets a lot more love and attention is one with, a lot more enthusiasts. The thing with these big brands in luxury cars, Lambo or Ferrari, I think Ferrari even more especially, it's like clothing brands, people get it for the badge.
Yeah.
A lot of these rich dudes aren't getting them because they're supercars and don't even know anything really about kind of what they're buying, and also have no respect. So when they see a 308 in pristine condition rolling up, next to their
It's like, yeah, you're outdated.
296 or whatever, yeah,
It's just an outdated car.
they don't
On
care.
the flip side, and I use the term new money because, congratulations to anybody who can go out and afford a supercar, hypercar,
Mhm.
whatever. Congratulations. But there is a difference between money and taste. And in my mind, the vintage cars are just that much. They're the next level of purchase and investment. On the other hand, I found that the Lamborghini enthusiasts are far different. That the moment a vintage Lamborghini shows up, it's revered. It's
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
It's the car. The guy with the Aventador is now turning his head. That's a Countach. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
I'll never forget the story. One time there used to be a big show and shine just off the Main Street McLeod Trail at the Home Depot. And a fella had his brand new 430 Scuderia and tons of attention to that car. And he was really, really pleased at this. And then I came rolling up in my pearl white downdraft anniversary Countach. And my buddies said they witnessed it because they were all there first. At the crowd just went this way and just walked over as I came pulling in, and the deflated look on the poor. And he just had spent a fortune on this car, but the reverence to the old stuff
Mhm.
was what was so cool. Is everybody went, oh wow, that's here now. And that's what I loved about even the Lamborghini kind of culture, and those enthusiasts was they were very, very knowledgeable about the history of the old stuff.
I think that even just harkens back right to the very beginning, the grassroots entry of Lamborghini into the market,
For
and
sure.
why.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
Ferruggio was like,
Yeah.
screw you, Enzo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
But so
it's fitting.
going back to like right or wrong answer, I mean, you buy a Trailer Queen, and maybe the only thing you want to do is show it. and it gives you great pride to own it and polish it. My father, who's had every car under the sun and special cars and whatnot. I mean, he bought a first gen Diablo. They made 200 of them, very rare car. And he bought that car specifically because he wanted the experience of going to a gas station and raising the door and putting gas in it. That's how what he envisioned for himself. That was the experience that he saw, not driving real fast and being silly and showing off. A personal experience of raising the door. But he would tell you that he didn't ever care if he drove it much more beyond that. He got what he wanted from the experience, a personal experience, and that was it. So I don't think it's a negative thing to own a car and just polish it and whatever. But cars give you the opportunity to share, to smell, to polish, to work on, to drive. To me, they're the ultimate investment. And if you're not using them, if you're only buying a Trailer Queen, like you said, Kev, chances are good you should have something else, because you might have that Trailer Queen Corvette, but hopefully you have another one that you can get out and wring its neck a little bit.
That raises the question for me. What do you guys think is a car that is so priceless nowadays that you think shouldn't be driven on the road? But if you had the chance to have one and like you knew it wouldn't get damaged or any problems with it, you could drive this thing every day if you wanted to.
In what price range?
Anything. Just like what priceless is what I said. Well, it's just something
You
so
mean like an F1, like a McLaren kind of thing, or like
something like that. It's even something old. I was thinking like a old DB4, just kind of.
oh, I see. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense
Well,
too, though.
Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, something of that era. Your old,
or like there's a 250 GTO wouldn't be
well,
too bad
yeah,
to
I mean,
take
that-
out.
but that's
all
like
day.
that's like skirting the impossible. But
Yeah.
let's say you did
No, for
really
sure.
well and you ended up getting a 250 short wheelbase Ferrari of the same vintage and stuff, and instead of 40 million, it's worth 4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You did well or whatever. That's an experience I would absolutely do.
Yeah.
Absolutely do. But let's say you don't have that money, but you want something of that era. See, we're at a car venue and we got guys exercising
Holy
their
cow.
cars. That's why stuff like an E-Type is so charming, because it has that era mystique and power and everything, and is not those ridiculous cars. So something like that. But I mean, the F1's the ultimate car. But I think maybe the best daily, if you could afford it, would be, for me, something like either a 911 Turbo or a NSX, the early NSXs. Well, in fact, the last 6-speed Targa 3.2 would be the ultimate daily driver car if I could have one.
They're easy to drive.
Yeah.
They've got great visibility.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like an exotic, and for all intents and purposes, they are
Very much so.
amazing. But I'm going to guess easy to work on, maintain, not exorbitant in terms of your costs. So yeah, that's a true enthusiast car right there.
Well, there's the other question. What makes an exotic? What is the definition of an exotic? Because anybody who says the Honda NSX, or in North America, we call it the Acura NSX, isn't exotic, and is, as far as I understand it, that's the first all aluminum car ever made. Engine, panels, everything. Right. I mean, it had so many patents and technologies when it came out that it just shocked the world. That car is without a doubt an exotic car.
For
no
sure.
question about it. The materials used, the engineering. So what makes an exotic? Does it have to have scissor doors?
Nope.
Right? Is it
Helps.
based solely on performance? Yeah, it sure helps. But a Testarossa doesn't have it, and most would say that's a pretty exotic car of that era. right?
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, it helps because then the Countach came along and
Change the world.
bent it
Right.
over and spanked it.
It sure did. Yeah, but like, what is the criteria? Is a C4 Corvette ZR1 an exotic car? From the standpoint of performance, you're darn right it is. From the materials used, incorrect. The plastics of the dash and whatnot kind of nullify that. But then you go to the engine technology, and it absolutely is an exotic car.
Aluminum,
Yeah.
and everything else was
Well, 4 cam, 32 valve,
yes.
11 fuel injectors, all of this
was-
stuff in this incredible machine.
It was very game changing in its day. And I feel like groundbreaking.
Yeah. But is
But
a C4Z an exotic car? No, but it's a specialty car.
I know personally I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, the right thing came along, but a regular C4 would not be something that I would go seek out.
No, it's.
But if the right one came along, the right price, yep, I'd buy it.
I think they're the bargain of the century. Any good C4 is the bargain of the century, but the Z is a whole new level.
Yep.
Is a 996 turbo an exotic car?
Yeah. What car do you feel the coolest driving? Like, as far as seating position,
Ooh, wow.
one hand on the wheel or changing gears, and what's like the coolest type of
Well, for me, it was always the Countach, the anniversary Countach, because of just you're in such a cockpit and a laid back windshield, and the shifts were so exactly how you want it, firm, and the inputs required your attention and strength. And I laugh at these Jeremy Clarkson, these guys.
Well,
who
they'll
drive the
malign these
Countach,
things.
like, oh, my
the
leg
offset
and the
pedal
clutch.
box.
It's like, dude, grow a set. Like, you're driving a Countach with a big V12, 6 carbs behind you. Yeah, it requires a little bit of muscle. Stop going to the pub. Start going to the gym. You're a Lamborghini owner now. Like, come on. But no, without question, the Countach for me was the best. The most intimidating car I've ever driven, of course, was the XJ220, and that includes an F50, that includes an F40. The XJ was just so girthy and massive.
There was
and
tons
long.
of space inside. Like,
That car-
it was the
yeah.
opposite of the Countach in terms of like you're in there, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
It's
No, it
big,
was a
it's wide, it's
220
comfortable.
mile an hour Bentley in the Jag. The AC worked, power windows, leather everywhere. It was incredible, but
Yeah.
it was just such a massive car. I mean,
It
the
was
dash
big.
was huge
Yep.
and everything. How about you? Most kind of memorable experience or exotic car? You've driven lots of stuff being 20 years old.
Yeah, decent list. I've I don't know. I was gonna mention the C4 Corvette ZR1's really neat because, or just any C4 in general, because getting into it kind of reminds me of a go-kart a little bit.
Yeah.
You gotta
that
climb
big
over.
hill.
You gotta climb over this big hump, and then
Nice.
nice.
Car guys.
Yeah, you gotta climb over this
Speaking
big.
of buffoons,
Gotta climb over this big hump into
that's
the
still, yeah.
into the car, and then the seat is kind of actually very buckety, which isn't that common for cars of that
A lot of bolstering.
age. I like it. I think when you drive it, it feels very planted. Actually, I don't know what it is, but it feels like your legs are underneath the engine for some reason.
Yeah.
You feel very in the car.
Very much so.
You are.
They
Yeah.
are. I mean, once you're in a C4, they're very cool cars to drive. They handcuff themselves, given their primary audience was middle-aged men who would struggle getting in and out of those big sills and whatnot. So they changed a lot in the C5. But once you're in, that's a total cockpit hanging onto that wheel and
For sure.
the cell.
But as far as I think the coolest experience and everything and the best car was the NSX, the old NSX. Was,
I remember my first time
was
in
the
one,
best one,
and it was special.
oh,
Pretty.
what
I worked at a
machine.
Ford dealership, and a customer had one. Let me take it for a spin.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome. Again, we talked about this earlier. Is the camaraderie and just the connection that car people have.
Yeah. And willingness to share even.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, what's the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever shared with you?
Boy, I've driven, I mean, absurd stuff. F50, F40, Carrera GT.
Those are pretty crazy.
Yeah. Mercies. I mean,
Yeah.
super rare vintage 911s and yeah, vintage for everything.
Yeah.
Like old Ilero Lambos.
Yep.
Just absurd stuff. And it's amazing. Here's the keys to
Yep.
my one-off, my $1 million Carrera GT. I mean, I've driven 3 Carrera GTs in all very different circumstances and crazy. The F50 would probably now be the most valuable car that I can think of, given that now they're 3, 4, 5 million US.
Unbelievable.
Crazy. Yeah, it's pretty immense that people share.
I gotta clear something up about the F50 now with someone who's driven one, because I've heard so many mixed opinions on it. Some have said, it feels like you're bolted to a rocket ship, like, or it feels like the engine is bolted to your back.
Yep.
Other people have said that's a great sensation. It's a fun feeling, especially since it came from an F1 car of that era.
Pretty much.
Sort of, same
Yep.
sort of thing. But is it a good car to drive, or is it a little disappointing, or where does it stand for you?
This kind of goes back to even we alluded to just going to Ferrari car shows and the kind of the snobbery that can be there. I cannot believe that the F40 or the F50 rather is not one of the most revered cars in Ferrari's history. It is so special and so magnificent to drive, and that sensation of the suspension bolted right to the engine and right behind your butt and all the carbon fiber, and I mean, it's a magnificent car to drive, and only the Ferrari people in my mind look down their nose on it. Every other car person on the planet was like, wow, only Ferrari could do that after the F50. But it wasn't necessarily or the F40. It wasn't necessarily faster than the F40, top speed or around a track. But I did our old enthusiast show when I had the F50 on it. What they did was simply create a new supercar experience, not one of a higher level as far as speed or whatnot. It was a V12 versus the twin turbo V8, and it was a totally different experience. And I think it was only Ferrari people at the time were disappointed that the numbers weren't better from an ego standpoint, and we don't have the fastest car in the world anymore. And, the F40 was so groundbreaking, and the F50 changed the landscape, but it wasn't big enough for only the Ferrari guys. Everybody else in the world looks at that car and says it's amazing. I've driven both, and I would like to drive an F40 again. It was raw and it was amazing, but the memory I have of the F50, it would be the one I would choose of the two.
Well, maybe people don't like it then because it's not as much of a luxury experience. I think Ferrari really wanted the F50 to be a car that kind of puts a bit of hair on your chest. And
it did.
Yeah, right.
It did.
Like violent, but
think
in all the best ways, right?
Removable roof on the car.
Mhm.
I mean, the engineering is an absolute masterpiece of that car, where the F40 was just this stripped out, absolute scalpel of a weapon. Unbelievable. And the F50 had this engineering that was next level with the chassis configuration and the big V12 and absolutely, in my mind, a superior car, not necessarily a superior experience, because an F40's probably the greatest exotic car ever made when it comes down to it. But the F50 is a very, very special car.
Which one's prettier?
The F50's prettier. The F40's more aggressive, is how I say it.
You're a 40
I
guy.
disagree. Yeah, I'm a 40 guy. I think that 40 is a
We
little
have a
prettier.
picture of you sitting in the F50.
Yeah,
in
we
the
do.
Is
driver's
that
seat.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That would be
the
it.
young punk. Well, the F40 is as shocking as it gets.
The F40 seems very clean. It just
Yeah.
like they took a very I mean in some regards obviously it looks kind of like a 355 with the extra sort of wing and arrow and that kind of stuff. Like it just has a very clean Ferrari look to it, but with all that
Mhm.
add-on that makes it just
It's super
Super.
aggressive.
And
super
Yes.
aggressive.
Enzo put his touch on it too.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. Which is why I
F50
think
doesn't have.
the F40 was a little bit more revered, is because of the Godfather
Mhm.
gave his blessing on it, and the F50 was, well, what do we do now?
mhm.
I was
And-
shocked walking up to that car close up and looking at the paint.
Yeah.
Like it looks a little textured.
See
Turns
the
out
weave.
that's the carbon weave. The paint is
Oh,
so
is that what it
thin.
was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see the carbon
Okay.
weave under the paint. The paint
Right.
is so
So
thin.
So it's not orange
Cool.
peel.
Yeah, it's not orange peel. That's right. Yeah, the Ferrari paint back then wasn't very good. If you get
Rattle
Giuseppe on a Friday. Yeah. No, I mean, both absolutely stunning cars, but the F50 is still not as revered as it should be.
No. Step away from exotics for a second. Any memorable experiences or thoughts on, say, a muscle car? What era of like would you drive? 60s, 70s, small block, big block? Anything that stands out in your mind? Mopar, Ford, GM.
Yeah, great question. For me in the future, I still believe I would like a fastback 60, either a 67 Mustang or
Ooh.
or a 65 fastback, like the Shelby style, the Hertz cars. To
I love
me,
the
that's an
fastbacks.
aspirational car
Beautiful.
for me. I love how they look. I would pursue, without a doubt, though, a split window Corvette.
Mhm.
I mean, I've driven a few, and the character of that little bar in your rear glass,
Mm-hmm.
it just heightens everything. It just, driving a split window that's well sorted, that would be my car of that era. That would be the one that I would choose to get. And they're lovely cars to drive. They're just old cars, so they drive like old cars, but they're phenomenal. So,
I think I want a truck.
oh yeah.
Like an old like
yeah.
Ford or Mercury,
you
like
do.
a Mercury pickup,
yeah.
For sure.
slammed
Yeah.
and with something
Okay.
raw.
like
under the hood,
the old 5-window
Oh,
back
yeah.
50s kind of, or more square body, like what
No,
are you
like
thinking,
older,
60s,
yeah.
50s kind
yeah,
of?
50s.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like a cool C3 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A C3.
or a split window. I don't know, but I'm leaning more towards Corvettes because, like, I'm a big space guy. I think space is cool. And back in the day, all the astronauts, they all
Yeah.
had muscle cars,
Stingrays.
but they were
Yeah.
all Corvettes.
Stingray, yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
always-
GM
they
did well
always
there.
owned
Get
Corvettes.
the astronauts in the
In the Corvettes.
Corvettes. Well, of course, then the C3s. Last year at the auction, we sold the 68. Well, we sold several, but the 68 big block was super cool because it was the 1 year only where they had the door handle that comes down and the push button.
Right.
And that was just a character thing on the old 68s. In fact, a C3 Corvette is the first car I ever did 100 miles an hour in. And that was in
Which
the
track was that?
That was exactly in the passenger seat as a young man with my dad driving, because he owned a
okay.
couple. And I remember looking over at the Speedo and it was just starting to climb and just like, whoa, yeah, we did 100 miles an hour. Don't tell your mother. No,
What's the fastest I've ever gone with you?
on a track? I'm not sure.
Yeah, on a track.
I think it's been. Was it in the XJ220? Just exercising it slightly.
We didn't take an XJ that quick.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was you and your
Shit.
brother.
Wow.
We went quick on the track.
Right.
Yeah, on a track.
Well, the road was closed for private event.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That would be it. But so this is funny about
No, we went faster in the Acura. I thought we took the Acura pretty.
the 2017,
Yeah.
the new version, the
new
hybrid
Acura.
Acura. Yeah,
Oh,
that's very
right.
possible
We went
because it
fast in
got
that
there
car.
pretty quick.
I'm pretty.
I drive like an old man because my cars are all old men.
Right.
So I treat them accordingly, stretch them a little bit
respect.
first, take them out, get the heart rate up, and then bring it back down and go for a beer. That's what the cars need. Be treated like an old man. But